This week's photo has seen better days. You can see it's missing a couple of its corners. Still has a story to tell though, so let's dig into its who, what, when and where. And we start with where, but let's make it a bit brighter first. There we go, that's better. And then flip it over. On the back we can see City Hall, Queen's Road. You probably knew that already. These are quite well-known buildings. So here's Hong Kong's first City Hall, decorated with lanterns when this picture was taken. When it opened in 1869, it was a big step forward in civic life for the young city, as it contained a large theatre, several rooms that were used to host a variety of events, and it also had a museum and a library. In front of it, we've got Dent's Fountain here. It was an older structure. It was finished in 1864 and was a gift from Mr. Dent of Dent & Co. to Hong Kong. Now, unfortunately, Dent & Co. didn't survive to see the City Hall open. The company was bankrupted by a bank failure in 1866. So this is really the last trace of the company at this point. A little structure I'd also like us to notice is this low wall between the fountain and the building. We'll come back to that a little bit later. Now let's switch over to the Gulo website just to see where all of these stood. Here's the page for the City Hall, which we can see opened in 1869 and was all demolished by 1936. It was actually demolished in two separate phases. So the western half went first, this section here, and that was to make way for an expansion of HSBC's building. They wanted to build a larger headquarters building. We can see that more clearly on a map from 1901. Here we are. So at that time, the bank occupied this site over here. And then afterwards, it expanded to cover this area as well. Let's look at a bigger map. So we can see that City Hall, it was at the junction of Devoe Road. That's coming around here. That's the tram road today. And Queen's Road running along here. And there was a large open area in front of City Hall here. And for many years, that was the site of the annual horse fair or horse market. We can also see the fountain mark clearly. And then this little curved line here, this is that low wall that we saw in the picture. Let's take a look at the area in a modern map just to see how it's changed. So if you know the area, the pavement here is very wide, but not wide enough to fit a horse market into either. The new building, you can see it's shifted a bit to the south, and it's just a much longer building, so it comes much closer to Queen's Road Central here. The larger HSBC building also meant a rearrangement of the local streets. So in 1901, if you remember, there was a Wardley Street, ran roughly along here. So that was taken away, and then we gained a new street over here. This is Bank Street. The eastern half of the City Hall, that lasted a bit longer. It was all gone by 1936. The site stayed empty through World War II, and then after that, that was when the construction of the Bank of China building started here, and it's the same building that we see on the site today. Let's go back to the photo and we'll work out the who and the what. Who first, and it's the usual crowd out on the street. Looking at the shadows are very short, so the sun's high in the sky. I guess it's lunchtime. I can see several people with their hair in a braid. You couldn't be 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that these are men. And that over here we've got a shaved forehead as well. So that points to these being pictures taken sometime before the revolution of 1911. Now, what other clues have we got to put a date on the photo? Well, you can't see from the video, but the paper that this photo is printed on, it's very thin paper, which also suggests an older date. If I look at photos in my collection, then sometime around the early years of the 20th century, we start getting those sort of thicker card that you'd expect with a modern photo. But the older pictures tend to be on this much thinner paper. Turning to the building, well, we know that the west half was gone in the early 1930s, so our photo must have been taken sometime earlier than that. Then let's go back to the website and see what clues we can find among the other photos we have of City Hall. Before we do that, just keep this in mind as well. So we've got to remember our low wall here and the large lamppost here with the power cables suspended from it. Right, back to our City Hall page, and if we click on photos, these are all the photos we have, and frankly we've got lots over the years, but there are three that I want to concentrate on. So the first one, taken in 1887. If we take a closer look, we can see why. So again, it was a time when the building was all decorated, and in the center here is a picture of Queen Victoria. So this was the City Hall decorated for Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee. And just look at the street lamps of the day, much smaller than the one in our photo. So our photo must have been taken sometime after this. Here's a stereo view. This would have been taken at the start of the 20th century, sometime in the early 1900s. And if you look here, you can see the same power cables in the sky that we see in our picture. So perhaps our photo taken around this time. Moving on, we come to a photo from the 1920s. And horses, of course, have been replaced by cars. And so our space for a horse market is now being used as a car park instead. In the background, we zoom in and show you, that low wall has been demolished. So our picture taken sometime before 1925. So quite a large range, but sometime between 1887 to 1925, and maybe around the early 1900s. That's as far as we've got. Back to the main photo again. For the photos what? Let's have a closer look at this fountain. There's something quite unusual about it in this photo. In fact, I wonder if that's the reason that the photo was taken. So if you look at the photo, it's the fountain in this photo is clearly spraying out jets of water. And that doesn't sound unusual for a fountain, but it was for this one. So for most of its life, this fountain was bone dry. The latest mention I've found of it being used is from 1930. This is the Hong Kong Daily Press from 1930, 1st of April, and they've got an article here. City Hall fountain comes to life, and let me read out some of the text there. His Excellency and party went on foot to the top of Wardley Street at its junction with Queen's Road, where His Excellency opened the valve connecting the harbour pipe with the city mains by means of a large key wrapped in red, white and blue bunting. As he moved the key, all eyes were turned to the famous fountain, which has been dry for so many years. First, a tiny jet appeared from the cup upheld by the Triton. Then, as it grew in height, other jets sprang up from the upper basin. Each second the water rose higher, till in a few moments it was playing freely. Mrs. Wolfe said, "My husband said this is the first time he has seen the fountain play." Another voice was heard to remark that the speaker had seen the great sight when the Prince of Wales visited the colony, while Sir Shusun Chow said, "It makes me feel very old. Last time I saw it, I was only a little boy of 10, 60 years ago." The crowd didn't disperse until after 3:30, when the last reluctant drops rose from the fountain after the water had been turned off again for who can say how many years. So what was going on this day? Well, it was an exciting day. It was the opening of the new Cross Harbour pipeline. The pipeline brought water from Sing Moon Valley across to Hong Kong Island, and everyone was hoping it would end the water shortages that were a common problem on Hong Kong Island. Looking back in time before 1930. We don't have to go too far back. The fountain was turned on for a little while in 1929, but that was just really to check that it worked. It says residents of 20 years or more fail to recall the time when the fountain was alive. And another report from 1905 in the newspaper says it certainly is some considerable time since the fountain ejected water. Let's look back to the photo. Based then on the other older photos we saw and the fountain's long dry spell in the early 20th century, my best guess is that this scene is from the end of the 19th century, probably maybe sometime in the 1890s. Certainly if you see any clues that'll help pin down a date, then do please let us know in the comments below. I read an article recently talking about when the power cables moved to be underground, but frustratingly I didn't take a note of where I saw it, and I can't find it again. One other question I'd like your help with is, do the lions still exist? So there were 4 stone lions that stood at the base of the fountain, and the newspaper at the time the fountain was being demolished said that 2 of the 4 stone lions have been placed at the gateway of a house in Kowloon Tong, while the other 2 are to grace a new residence at Tsuen Wan. So if you can tell us what happened to them next, and even better if they still survived, again, please let us know. Well, that wraps up our look at this photo. As always, lots more old Hong Kong photos and stories are in my books. I'll leave links to them and to all the other topics that we've discussed here in the notes below. Thank you very much for watching.